Her sister disappeared 25 years ago. No body, no explanation, no ending. And everyone around her moved on. But Willa never could. In today's episode of Clinically Speaking, I want to talk a little bit about why Willa's response makes complete sense from a clinical perspective. Hi, I'm Harley. I'm an ER social worker in LCSW from the Pittsburgh area. And welcome back to Clinically Speaking, the series where I take books and break them down through a clinical lens. If you are new here, the idea is pretty simple. Fiction is full of psychology. Sometimes the most accurate portrayals of what people are going through are portrayed in fiction and novels. And I think there's real value in naming what we're seeing in these books. Today, we're going to talk about Things Don't Break on Their Own by Sarah Easter Collins. And the clinical concept I'm going to bring up today is ambiguous loss. Stick with me, because by the end of this, I think you're going to see this book, and honestly, probably some people in your own life, and think differently about their situation. So here's what you need to know before going in. Things Don't Break on Their Own follows Willa, a woman in her 40s whose sister, Laika, vanished without a trace 25 years ago. There was no ransom note, no body, no explanation. Laika was just there, and then one moment she wasn't. And the book opens with Willa still searching for her. She sees her sister everywhere, on the train, on the street. And every single time she thinks she sees her, she drops everything she's doing to look for her. Jobs, relationships. Her entire life has been organized around this search for Laika and the possibility that she's still out there somewhere. Meanwhile, everybody that she loves and knows has moved on. They've all grieved. They've found a way to move forward. And they look at Willa like someone who is stuck. But here is where this book understands that the people around Willa don't. She's not stuck. She's doing the only thing her mind knows what to do, and it's never given her permission to stop. So let's talk about ambiguous loss. This concept was developed by a psychotherapist, Pauline Boss, and she is one of the most important and unrecognized frameworks in grief work. The basic idea is this: most grief, as painful as it is, has a structure. Someone dies, there is a body, there is a funeral, there's a defined moment of grief and loss, and then there's the grieving process, however long and nonlinear it might be. Ambiguous loss does not have that. It's loss without closure. It happens when loss is not confirmed, or when someone is physically gone but emotionally present, or physically present but emotionally not there. Think families of missing persons, families with a loved one who has dementia. Think estrangement. When the loss is ambiguous, the mind can't complete the grieving cycle. There's no moment to point to. There's no permission to stop hoping. And because hope is technically still rational, the person keeps going, keeps searching, keeps holding that door open just in case. And that's not really pathology. That's an adaptive response to an impossible situation. Willa has been living with ambiguous loss for 25 years. And the book is extraordinarily precise about what that looks like from the inside. What Sarah Easter Collins does really well here is she never lets you see Willa as someone who's broken. She lets you read her as somebody who is responding logically to a situation that has no logical solution. When Willa sees somebody who looks like Laika on the street and chases her, that is not a breakdown. That is her nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do over 25 years of ambiguous loss. It found a pattern that matches, and it responds. Clinically, one of the hardest parts about ambiguous loss is the social isolation. The people around you have moved on, they've grieved, they've moved forward, but you can't, because the loss for you was never confirmed. So there's this enormous gap between your internal experience and what everybody else sees and expects from you. Willa experiences this constantly. She knows she's perceived as somebody who can't let go, but letting go would require her to accept a loss that's never been confirmed for her. And that tension is at the heart of this book. And then there's the title, Things Don't Break on Their Own. Damage has a cause. Broken people were broken by something or someone. This book layers domestic violence and repressed memory onto that grief. And it never lets you forget that these things did not happen in a vacuum. This is one of the most clinically honest books that I have read in a while. One of the reasons I wanted to do this book for Clinically Speaking is that ambiguous loss is so rarely named, but so common. Families of missing persons live with it. So do people whose loved ones have dementia. They're physically present, but they're no longer the person that they once knew. So do adoptees who search for their biological families, or people who are estranged by their children or their family, or families separated by incarceration, immigration, war. And because ambiguous loss does not look like conventional grief, people experiencing it often don't get the support that they need. They're told to move on. They're told it's been too long. They're treated as though their grief is a choice, rather than a response to an unsolved situation. What this book shows is the goal with ambiguous loss is not resolution. It's resilience within the ambiguous. It's learning to hold both at the same time, the hope and the grief, the not knowing and the continuing to live. That is incredibly hard work. And I think fiction that takes this seriously, like this book, is genuinely valuable. So do I recommend Things Don't Break on Their Own? Yes, genuinely yes. It's a literary mystery, which means it's more interested in the emotional truth of what happened than in just a twisty plot reveal. If you're a person who reads for character and psychology, this is going to be right in your lane. It is not a light read. It deals with domestic violence, loss, grief, and family trauma in ways that are unflinching. So just be aware of that going into it. But it is also one of the most clinically honest books that I've seen in a while. And I truly think it deserves more attention than it's getting. If you have read it, I want to know what you think. Drop your comments below. I'm Harley. This is Clinically Speaking. Subscribe if you want more of this. And I'll see you guys at the next one.